The red wind howled across the broken cliffs of Wreath Prime, dry and sharp like shattered glass. Naren stood at the edge of the ravine, her violet eyes narrowed against the dust. Her armor shimmered in the twin sunlight. She looked proud, confident, untouchable. She was one of the highborn warriors of the Valari people, raised for combat, trained from childhood to face monsters without fear. Behind her stood the human, quietly adjusting the strap of his tool pack. His name was Cole. He wore no armor, only a patched flight jacket and dirt-scuffed boots. He was a mechanic, not a soldier. Yet his voice carried more weight than any commander when he spoke. "Do not go in there," he said. "The ground isn't stable. And the sensors are acting strange." She turned, lips curled in amusement. "You are afraid of shadows, Earthman. It is not shadows I fear," Cole answered. "It is what the shadows might be hiding." Naren gave a small, sharp laugh. Her kind did not fear creatures in the dark. Her people once hunted storms for sport. But Cole's words lingered, not because of what he said, but how he said it, calm, measured, like he had seen something before, that he never wanted to see again. She looked away and stepped forward 1 foot across the line. The ravine opened. Wide before her, filled with jagged stone and silent air, there were no signs of life. No sound. Just red sand and bones that looked too large to be animal. She kept walking. Cole did not follow. He just stood there, watching her like he was already mourning something. The sun shifted. Her shadow stretched far behind her. Then she noticed something strange. The wind stopped. All of it. Like the world had paused to take a breath. She turned her head slowly behind her. No Cole. She was alone now. She reached for her weapon. A curved energy blade mounted on her back. She heard the hum as it powered up. That sound always made her feel safe. In control. She didn't feel that way now. Something about the silence scratched at the back of her mind. Her instincts whispered danger, but her pride shoved the feeling away. She pressed forward. The rocks changed color beneath her feet. Red turned to black. Cracks spidered through the ground like veins. She paused, looked around. No movement. Then something blinked. Not in the sky, in the ground. It was gone in a second. She bent down and placed her fingers on the soil. Warm, too warm. Suddenly her communicator buzzed. A low, broken signal. She pressed it. Cole's voice came through. "Get out of there now." She stood. Something grabbed her ankle. She screamed and swung her blade down. But it was too fast. The ground beneath her crumbled like ash and she fell. The drop was not long, but it felt endless. She landed hard, rolled, and came to a stop in a hollow beneath the surface. It was not a natural cave. The walls pulsed with strange lights, blue and green and sickly white. The air was thick and wet. Her blade sparked but didn't ignite. Something had drained its charge. She tried her communicator again. Static. Her ankle throbbed. She looked down deep. Scratch marks, not claws, teeth. She crawled backward until her hand touched something soft. She turned. It was a piece of armor, not hers. Valari design. Cracked open. Blood dried across the chest. She reached out and found a small medallion still attached to the collar. It had a name she recognized. That soldier had gone missing 2 months ago. On this same planet. They said it was an ambush. Now she knew it was not an ambush. It was a feeding ground. A low hiss filled the space from behind a wall of bone. Something moved, tall, thin, with skin like stone and eyes like glass. She froze. It watched her without blinking. Then it opened its mouth. Rows of teeth shifted inside. Like blades. She turned and ran, crawled, stumbled. She didn't know which direction. She just moved. Her leg hit something hard. A pile of gear. It was Cole's tool bag. She stared at Ive. Had followed her in even when she laughed at him. Even when she called him weak. She grabbed the bag and kept going. A narrow path opened up. A headlight poured in. She ran toward it. The creature followed, silent, close. The air got thinner. Her chest burned. She reached the exit and clawed her way out. The sun blinded her, but she was alive. And then she saw him, Cole, running toward her. No armor, no weapons, just him. He reached her and pulled her up. Checking her wounds. "I told you not to go in," he said softly. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come behind them. The creature rose from the hole, turned eyes wide. He pushed her to the side and stood between her and the monster. "You need to move. Now," he said. She couldn't. Watched as he picked up a broken metal rod from the ground. That was all he had, and he faced the thing like it was nothing. She had never seen courage like that. Not from her own people, not from any warrior. The creature lunged. He swung. The rod cracked. It screamed. But so did height. Hit him across the back and sent him flying. He landed hard and didn't move. Her heart stopped. She ran to him. To her knees, blood stained the sand around him. He opened his eyes for just a second. "Told you, it wasn't shadows," he whispered, and then he went still. She looked up. The creature was gone. But the sky was growing darker. Sun dipped behind the cliffs. Night was coming, and this planet had no mercy in the dark. She took his hand, held it close. She didn't feel strong anymore. She felt small and scared and sorry, so deeply sorry. He had warned her, and she had laughed now. He was broken, and she was alone, and everything was just beginning. Naren had trained in the high mountains of Zareth from the time she could walk. She was taught to feel no fear, to show no weakness, and never to ask for help. Her bones had broken during combat trials. Her hands had bled during blade lessons. But she never cried. Not once. Not even as a child. Now she lay on her side in the dust of Wreath Prime, unable to move her right leg. And there were tears in her eyes, real ones. The fall had taken more than her breath. It had taken her strength, her pride, and something she couldn't name. The creature had vanished for now. She didn't know why. Maybe it thought she was already finished. Maybe it wanted her to feel fear before it returned. She pressed her hand against her armor, cracked across the ribs. Her blade was gone. Wound on her ankle had reopened. She tried to lift herself, but her muscles trembled. Every breath sent sharp pain through her chest. She coughed and tasted blood. She reached for her communicator again, still static, still alone, or so she thought. A sound echoed down the corridor of rock and bone behind her footsteps, but light ones, not the heavy, slithering weight of the creature human boots. She blinked against the rising dust and saw Cole appear through the light. His jacket was torn, his face bruised, but his eyes were steady. He dropped to his knees beside her and scanned her body with the portable medical lens. "You're lucky," he said. "Nothing broken in the spine, but your leg needs support now." She tried to speak, but her throat burned too much. He didn't wait for her words. He tore a strip from his own sleeve and began wrapping her leg. She watched him. He worked fast. His hands sure, not shaking. She remembered calling him soft. She remembered saying he was just a repairman. But now he was here, saving her life. She whispered, "Why did you come?" "Because you screamed," he said without looking at her. "That's all." No pride in his voice, no victory, just truth. When the bandage was done, he lifted her gently onto his back. She winced but didn't cry out. He grunted under the weight but never complained. She felt every step he took, slow and careful. The deeper parts of the cave pulsed around them like a breathing lung. The walls glowed faintly, casting long shadows. Strange symbols pulsed on the surfaces, alive with old energy. She asked, "What is this place?" He answered, "Ancient lab or tomb, maybe both. The scanners can't read it." She rested her head on his shoulder, not out of affection, out of weakness. Her pride had cracked with her armor. They moved through the tunnels for minutes that felt like hours. The silence pressed on them. No creatures followed. But they both knew the danger wasn't gone. He turned a corner and stopped ahead of them, stood a wide room, lit by crystals in the ceiling. The floor was smooth and full of strange markings. Bones lined the walls, some of them Valari, others too strange to name. He set her down carefully against the wall and pulled out a small power cell from his scythe. Tried to boost the communicator signal again. It sparked once, then died. "We need to reach higher ground," he said. "We won't get a signal down here." She nodded. Her voice came slow, heavy, like it had to fight to escape her throat. "I thought I was strong enough." "You are," he said. "But this place doesn't care about strength. It only cares about what you're willing to lose." She looked at him. He had nothing to prove here, no reason to risk himself, and yet he stayed. She didn't understand that kind of loyalty, not from a human, not. From someone she had mocked in front of others, she asked, "Have you been here before?" His face darkened for just a moment once. He said then nothing more. She didn't press. They rested for a few minutes. Then came the sound, not footsteps, not breathing, something deeper, like the ground itself groaning. The air grew colder. Lights dimmed. Cole stood slowly. His hand reached for a metal pipe left near the wall, the only weapon they had. He turned to her. "Stay behind." Mesh tried to rise. Her legs screamed. She couldn't move fast enough. The far wall began to crack. Something was pushing through it. It wasn't the same creature as before. It was bigger. Its body looked like it was made of broken armor, like it had swallowed machines and worn them like skin. Its eyes glowed green, and it did not stop moving. Cole stepped forward. One step, two. His hand tightened on the pipe. She shouted, "No, you'll die." He didn't answer. The creature opened its mouth. No sound came out, just light, blinding, piercing light. Cole threw the pipe with all his strength. It hit the creature and the ice sparks exploded. Monster shrieked and swung its arm blindly. The ceiling cracked. A piece of rock fell straight toward her. She tried to roll away. Too slow, but Cole was faster. He dived over her and took the blow across his back. A loud crack echoed through the room. He collapsed on top of her. She screamed. His body was heavy. His blood was warm. The creature vanished through the broken wall. The room fell silent again. She struggled to move him off her. When she did, she saw the wound, a deep gash across his spine. She touched his face. He opened his eyes. "Barry, you're safe," he said. "That's all that matters." Then his eyes closed and he didn't wake up. She screamed again, but the cave swallowed her voice. She pressed her forehead to his chest and listened for the sound of his heart. It was still there, barely, but it was there. She looked at the glowing wall nearby, symbols shifting, like they were watching her. She whispered to herself, "I thought I was strong enough, but I was never strong alone." The ceiling above her still groaned, loose stones cracking and falling like small warnings. Naren ignored them. She sat beside the human's body, holding his hand in hers, staring at the mess of blood and bruises across his back. His breath came in weak waves, slow and painful. He had no armor, he had no blade, he had only come for her. She looked at him again, at the calm in his face even now, and the question echoed in her mind. Why would he come for me, after everything I said, after how I mocked him, laughed at his soft voice, dismissed his quiet strength? She remembered the first time they met. She had looked at him and seen nothing but a helper, a repairman with dirt under his nails and oil on his sleeves, a human with no rank, no power, no glory, she remembered. Turning her back on him during the council briefing, when he warned them about this planet's behavior, its shifting crust, its unstable energy signatures. She didn't even let him finish his sentence, and yet he followed her, risked everything, gave his body to shield hers. She leaned closer and touched his face. His skin was pale, too pale, and colder now. "Wake up," she whispered. "You're not allowed to leave me like this." She took his tool bag, searched through it with trembling fingers, found a small injector, a healing gel pack, a stabilizer shot, everything neatly packed, everything ready for someone else, not for himself. She worked with care. She had seen the medics do this. She wasn't trained. Her hands shook, but she pressed the sealant into the open wound, clipped the gel over the skin, injected the shot into his arm. She waited. His chest rose, but not strong enough. She pressed her forehead to his and whispered again, "Please, not for me, but for everything I never saw." In minute past 2. Then he stirred. His fingers twitched in hers. His eyes opened slowly, clouded, unfocused, but alive. She gasped, "Cole." She said, "It's me. You're safe now." He blinked slowly, then frowned. "Who are you?" He asked. Her heart cracked. It wasn't a cruel question. It was real. He didn't remember. She swallowed the pain, tried to smile, but her lips trembled. "You saved me," she said softly. "And now I'll get you out of here, even if you forget me tomorrow, even if you never remember what you did." His eyes closed again, but his breathing was steady now, slow and real. She gathered what she could, tore strips of cloth from her tunic, built a makeshift sling, lifted him with all her strength, staggered under his weight, but didn't stop. The cave grew darker, the walls narrower, The ground uneven, her leg burned with every step, her side ached. But she kept moving. The way out was long. Every turn felt the same, but she followed the soft breeze, the scent of dust and wind, and the pull of instinct as she walked. She spoke softly to him, told him stories about her home, about her family. Things she never told anyone. She didn't know if he heard. Didn't know if any of it mattered, but it mattered to her because now she saw who he really was, not just a human. Not just a repairman, but someone who saw past her armor, someone who didn't care about her rank or her race, someone who ran toward danger, not away from it, and she had treated him like nothing. She paused at a narrow cliff. The edge overlooked a lower chamber, too far to climb safely. But she had no choice. She tied him to her chest with straps, held him close, closed her eyes, and jumped. The landing knocked the wind out of her pain, exploded through her shoulder. But she was still alive. He groaned softly, still breathing. She kissed his forehead. Not out of love, but out of something deeper, something she didn't yet understand. The chamber ahead was brighter, and she could hear wind again. They were close. She looked down at him, his face calm again, his body still, and she whispered, "You shouldn't have come for me, but you did, and I will never forget it." The sunlight touched her face as they broke through the edge of the cavern. Real sky, open air. Naren blinked against the brightness. For a moment, she felt warmth again, hope. She held Cole tighter across her chest. His breathing was faint, but it was there. She had carried him through fire-colored tunnels, through blood, through fear. And now they were here, but her body was giving out. Her wounded leg dragged behind her. Her shoulders screamed with every step. The muscles in her back twitched from the weight. She had never felt this kind of weakness, not during training, not during combat, not even during the pain trials of the Valari clans. But this was not weakness. This was something else. She looked at him again. He had taken the blow meant for her. He had shielded her without question. He had bled so she could breathe, and now she could not even carry him one step further. Her knees buckled. She collapsed beside him at the edge of the rocks. The sun lit up his face, but he didn't open his eyes. She tried to lift him again. Her arms shook. She failed. Her pride shattered. She shouted into the open air. Her voice cracked, her heart heavy. There was no one to hear her. She pressed her forehead to the ground. Dust filled her nose. The heat pressed against her skin. She felt useless, helpless, ashamed, not because she was weak, but because he was strong. And she had treated him like he wasn't. Whispered his name over and over. "Cole, wake up. Please, you fought for me. Now let me fight for you." Rocks nearby shifted. A low hum came from the ridge, a scout drone. She looked up. Metal wings, blue lights, but it hovered too far. She reached for her communicator, tapped it again. Nothing. She screamed at the drone, tried to wave, but her arm dropped too quickly. The drone turned and vanished into the sky. She bit back a cry. Then something strange happened. Cole stirred. His lips moved. She leaned closer. He whispered one word, "Cliff." She followed his gaze. Just ahead, a high ridge with an emergency beacon platform. Old tech, mostly buried in sand, but if it worked, if she could reach it, she could call for help. She looked at her leg, purple and black. No feeling. She could not stand, but she could crawl, and she did, with her fingers digging into the sand, her elbows pulling her forward, pain stretching every nerve in her body. She reached the edge, pulled herself up, one movement at a time. The beacon was cracked, the solar cells burned. But the signal box was still there. She opened it. Wires inside fused together. She reached into her pocket, took out a tool from Cole's bag. She didn't know the names of these tools. She just knew how he used them. She had watched him fix broken ships with less. Her hands moved like his had, steady, focused, fast. She connected the wires, pressed the button. No light. She closed. Her eyes held the tool tighter and struck the casing. Once a spark, then another. The beacon lit. A soft hum grew into a whine. Then a long signal pulse shot into the sky. She stared at it, not believing it. It was working. It was really working. She crawled back to Cole, laid her head on his chest. "You held me when I was falling. You carried me without asking. Now I've done something right now. Maybe they'll come." She closed her eyes, not to sleep, but to pray that someone out there was listening, that help would come before the monsters returned, that he would live long enough to hear her sigh and sorry, not just for what I said, but for everything I never saw in you, because now she saw everything, and it changed her forever. The sky above Wreath Prime was changing. Clouds moved in with a violet hue. The wind no longer sang, it howled. Nareen lay next to Cole. His skin was growing colder, his heartbeat slowing. She had activated the beacon, but no ships came yet, no voices answered. No drones returned. She gripped his hand tighter. She was a warrior. She had led battles. She had watched enemies fall to her blade, but now, sitting in the dirt beside a dying human, she had never felt more powerless. Her pride had brought her here, her refusal to listen, her belief that strength meant standing alone. She had walked into this cursed land thinking nothing could touch her. But this man beside her, a quiet mechanic, he had touched her more deeply than she understood. He had warned her, begged her not to go. He saw what she couldn't. And when she fell, he came after her anyway, with no blade, no armor, no backup, just courage. She wiped blood from his lip. His breathing hitched. She pressed her forehead to his chest. His heartbeat barely answered back. She whispered, "You gave everything to protect me now. I will give everything to save you." She sat up and looked around. The signal was out, but this planet was known for signal interference. If help was coming, it would not be fast, and he did not have time. She reached for the last injector in his bag, the emergency stimulant, not made for healing, but for buying time. If used too early, it could burn out his heart, but used too late, it would be useless. Her hands shook. She hovered over his arm, afraid to make it worse. Then he stirred. His lips moved. No sound, just motion. She leaned in. "Tell me," she whispered. He whispered back. To it she pressed. The injector in his body jerked. His chest rose sharply. Then again he gasped, eyes wide. Then they closed again, but his pulse, it was faster. She cried out, not in fear, but in hope. She wasn't a healer, but she had done something right. She leaned down and whispered, "You are not dying today, not after all this." She forced herself to stand. Her legs screamed with pain. Her ribs ached, but she stood. She lifted him again, this time holding him like something precious. Not cargo, not duty. She would not let him go. Not now, not ever. The path ahead was rocky. The wind picked up. Something moved in the shadows again, but she was not afraid this time. Let them come. She would fight them all, with bare hands if needed, because this was not about glory anymore, not about rank, not about pride. This was about him and what he gave without asking, what he offered without question, his protection, his heart, his loyalty. She whispered as she walked, "Stay with me. Just a little longer. They will come. They must come." She didn't know who she was saying it to. Him, the sky, the stars, anyone who could hear her. Just when her legs gave out again, a sound cracked through the clouds. A ship, not large, not military, but fast, a rescue craft. She looked up. It circled once, then dropped low. She fell to her knees, holding him close, waving her free hand, screaming his name. The ship landed roughly. Dust and heat pushed across the rocks. A door opened. Rescue medics jumped out. They ran to her. She handed Cole over her arms, didn't want to let go, but she had to. Medic looked at her and nodded. "We got him. You did good. Now let us do the rest." She collapsed, not from pain, not from weakness, but from release, because finally someone else was there to carry the weight. The room smelled clean, too clean, like medicine. Metal machines humming quietly in the background. Nareen sat in the corner of the med bay, her arm in a sling, one leg braced from hip to ankle, her side wrapped tight from broken ribs, but her eyes never left the recovery bed. Across from her, Cole lay still, connected to 3 lines. A screen beside him blinked green, beeped slowly, steady, alive but quiet. The medics had said he might not remember the damage to his head, the lack of oxygen, the trauma to P. His spine. He might wake, but he might not know who he was, where he was, or who she was. That last part stayed with her the most. She had almost died on that planet, but it wasn't the beasts or the storms or the collapse in tunnels that broke her. It was the way he threw himself over her without hesitation, without care for his own life, and now the one she had hurt the most. Might forget her entirely. She leaned forward, watching his face, hoping for a twitch, a flutter, anything. His eyes opened. She froze one blink, then another. He looked around, slow, calm, no panic. His gaze moved to the ceiling, then to the lights, then to her. She stood slowly. Her heart beat faster. He stared at her, his expression blank. Then he spoke. "Are you the nurse?" Her mouth opened, but no sound came. She stepped closer, careful, hoping. "Cole, it's me." He blinked. "Sorry, should I know you?" Her chest sank, like the wind had been knocked from her soul. She sat beside him, tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You saved my life." "I did. You almost died, trying to keep me safe." He looked away, then back. "I don't remember." She nodded slowly. "I know." There was silence between them. Then he spoke again. "Are we friends?" Her throat tightened. She didn't know how to answer that. They had barely spoken. Before the mission, she had mocked him, pushed him aside, ignored every word he tried to say. Then he saved her life. More than once. Were they friends? She looked at his hand resting beside the sheet. She reached for it, held it gently. "Not yet," she said, "but I would like to be." He didn't pull away. "That's a good start," he said softly. She stayed beside him for hours, telling him stories about what happened, about what he did, about the things he said. He listened, eyes never leaving her face. She laughed once, when he frowned at her story about the creature. "That sounds like something from an old movie," he said. She smiled. "You said that before." "Too, did I?" "Yes, just before the ceiling fell. And you pushed me out of the way." He touched the side of his head. "Feels like something important's missing." She shook her head. "You didn't lose anything, you just gave too much." He looked at her again. "Why did I save you?" She looked away, then met his eyes again. "Because you're not the kind of person who lets someone fall, even if they pushed you away first." He didn't answer, but his fingers curled around hers. A small gesture, but it said everything. The stars outside the window blinked slowly, silent, peaceful, far from the burning dust of Wreath Prime, far from the screams, the fear, and the pain. Irene stood at the glass, arms folded, leg still stiff, scars hidden beneath her uniform, but they were there, every mark a memory behind her. The door opened, soft footsteps. She didn't turn. She knew who it was. Cole stood beside her. His reflection met hers in the glass. He looked better, stronger, still healing, but different. They both were out walking better. He said, "You're standing straighter." She replied. He smiled. The silence between them was not heavy this time. It was calm, like still water. She turned to him. "Don't remember everything, but you remember enough." He nodded. "I remember how you looked when I woke up, like you had waited a long time to say something I had," she said, and she stepped closer. "I'm sorry for laughing at you, for ignoring you, for thinking I was better. You were never weak. You were the strongest one there." His eyes didn't move away from hers. "I wasn't trying to be strong. I was just trying to do what was right." "And that," she whispered, "is what made you different." They stood in silence again. She looked down at her hand, then reached out and placed it in his. He held it gently, not like a soldier, not like a hero, but like someone who knew pain and chose connection anyway. "You saved my life," she said, "not just my body, but who I am." He looked out the window, the stars reflected in his eyes. "You saved mine too, not in the cave, not with medicine, but when you came back to sit beside me, even when I didn't know who you were. That meant more than anything." She blinked back, tears, not of pain but of understanding. This journey had taken so much from her. Her pride, her certainty, her reputation, but it had given her something she never expected. It gave her him, and through him, she found humility, strength, trust, something her people never taught, something she had never believed in, but now she did. They stood at the glass. Two survivors, one warrior, one mechanic, and something more growing between them, not spoken, not named but real. As the ship turned toward its next destination, as the stars passed slowly by, she whispered one last thing: "I would go through it all again, if it meant I'd find you at the end." He squeezed her hand gently, and she knew, even without all his memories, even without the past fully returned, the bond they shared was something no storm, no cave, no scar could ever take away.